Funding for the Hinckley Report is made possible in part by the George S. and Dolores Story Eccles Foundation and the Cleone Peterson Eccles Endowment Fund.
Tonight on the Hinckley Report, Donald Trump makes his first visit to Utah as president. How are Utahns reacting to the reduction of the national monuments?
What do we do when indigenous lands are under attack?
What is our delegation doing to make it permanent? Will our Mighty Five become the Super Six? And what are the political ramifications? Congress continues to tackle important issues, from tax reform to public lands. What role is Utah's delegation playing in major pieces of legislation? Will we see a resolution on the hotly contested issues of the year? And what is on the horizon for upcoming elections? Good evening, and welcome to the Hinckley Report. I'm Jason Perry, director of the Hinckley Institute of Politics. Covering the week, we have Steve Urquhart, former state senator, Judy Faze, reporter with KUER, and Jim DeBackus, state senator. So glad to have you all with us today. This has been a big week in politics for Utah. The national stage came to us with the visit from the President of the United States, taking a big action. Let's start with you, Senator Urquhart. How big of a deal was it that President Trump came to do this proclamation?
It was a huge deal. Typically, Republican presidents, they don't care about Western lands issues. You remember that W. Bush came in shortly after Grand Staircase Escalante was put in. He didn't want to touch it. He didn't do anything about it. So for Trump to come in and actually deliver on promises he's made to Republicans, that was a very big deal.
Senator Backus, well, I mean, big in its impact. Go ahead. What was your reaction?
Oh, what a mess it was. I mean, it was like this giant love festival. And first, can I say how appreciative I am to be here? This is my favorite television show other than The Voice, and it's just a pleasure to be here. And so thank you for inviting me. It was a mess. It was a mess from the moment that President landed. It was a mess through what he did here and depriving future generations of an incredible thing. And it was a mess just about in every way to have that man here.
For once, I agree with Senator DeBackus. It was a mess from the moment that Bill Clinton designated Grand Staircase Escalante from Arizona. It was politics then. It was politics when Trump came. Western lands typically are political. If this is the starting point for true lasting protection that a majority of Utahns agree with, that's great.
Well, give us some perspective, Judy, if you will, because we talk about the president's coming. This was specifically about this monument, but when Bill Clinton designated Grand Staircase, he didn't even do it from Utah. What do people think about that as opposed to the fact that at least Trump came?
You know, I think a lot of people who support the reduction in the monuments were really excited to see him here. I covered the story from San Juan County, a live stream viewing, and people were so glad that the president came to Utah. I think they really wanted him to go to southern Utah for the announcement, but they felt like he had stepped up and done something for Utah that they deserved. It's funny though, because he didn't go to the southern part of the state, and as the trip was being planned, I kept thinking, now where would Donald Trump actually go in southern Utah and look comfortable? I mean, it would be like that moment with Dukakis in the tank. You know, I can't really imagine Donald Trump putting on some cowboy boots and going down to Grand Staircase and walking around. It just
Jason, let's get fair here. Bill Clinton was closer to the area we're talking about when he declared Grand Escalante than Trump was when he declared, when he cut it all up. And let's look at what happens. The majority of Utahns, according to Dan Jones, do not want Grand Escalante. It's been there 20 years. It's 1.9 million acres. It's beautiful. And let's think about what's going to happen. We're going to have 7 million people in the state before too long. The soul of Utah. Have you stood on those places? Have you looked? Have you hiked? Have you camped? Have you fished? Have you seen those incredible ruins? And they're going in there with a bulldozer and they are ripping that apart. They're taking that down from 1.9 million acres. Trump, in 3 hours, signed it down to 1 million acres. And now we're all supposed to go celebrate because Congressman Stewart wants to put 100,000 acres into a national park. 100,000 up to 1.9 million. And exclude so many Utah families right now and for generations to come as those fuel companies come in and as they barricade that land and no more hunting, no more fishing, no more camping. It's a catastrophe for Utah families.
Is this what's happening to the land?
So I now live in downtown, and Senator DeBackus is my senator. I could not be prouder. I love his passion. I love his energy. I love his fight, but there are not bulldozers idling ready to get at these lands. You have to understand that outside of national parks and national forests, we have 20 million acres of public lands in Utah. Environmental groups say that fully half of those are so pristine, so uniquely amazing that they should be wilderness. So this is without monument protection. Our environmental groups are saying every other acre in Utah is a spectacular gem. So I agree with what Senator DeBackus is saying. We need to protect these lands. Let's do it in a way that actually can bring in revenues for southern Utah. Remember, there are cultures that have been around. We have to protect the Native American cultures, also the cultures of these small communities that have been there for 100 years. People rely on these lands. A park, people would actually come and see that. I mean, how do we protect them in a way that we can gather firewood, we can go in to see these areas? I hope this is the starting point, because here's the thing. There's going to be a legal challenge against this, and that all will depend on the panel that is drawn at the 10th Circuit, which after 8 years of President Obama, it's a fairly progressive circuit. There is a good chance that that Trump's actions could be tossed out. So now's the time for Republicans to say, okay, we might have the upper hand at this moment. How do we do something that really can lock it in, that Jim DeBackus will like, that I will like, that Mike Noel would like? I think we can reach that.
I kind of disagree with you, Steve. And the reason is that I feel like our politics is so divided right now that people really can't have an adult conversation about these issues in a meaningful way. And for the Republicans who are stepping up right now and saying, oh, we need to protect this land, you know, the land has always been there to protect, and it's been starved for funding. I thought it was really interesting in the proclamation, they're saying 10 law enforcement officers for each of the 5 parcels. I think now there's 2 each for Grand Staircase and for Bears Ears.
Who's responsible for that? Who's mismanaging them right now?
Congress?
Yes, Congress, the presidency. It's not like they were managed perfectly when you had a Democratic Congress or Democratic administration. We're locking them up and abusing them with cheatgrass, with all sorts of mismanagement.
Stevie, the big picture for all of this is consistency and come up with a plan that Utahns can plan around for the next 20 or 30 years. We had that opportunity. Representative Bishop, after squeezing by Democrats, put up this whole 3-year plan. And in the middle, he blew it. He decided to go down the political route, and he gave in to county commissioners, and it all fell apart. I was in the White House 3 times with the Obama people. And I said, please declare national monuments. And they said, we're not. We're waiting for Bishop. We want Bishop. We're waiting. We're serious. We want to take the maps of Utah. We want to exchange energy plots for those that should be protected. We'll take care of the revenue. We'll do things right. Remember, the state got $50 million when we did the Grand Escalante, which you never hear Republicans talk about. I'm saying we had the opportunity. It was on the table. We had a president who actually wanted to do just what Stephen said. And the Republicans in the state, they just couldn't give up the political moment of sticking it in the eye. So now here we are. Now presidents can rip up other presidents' monuments. Look where that's going to leave us. Sooner or later, there's going to be a Democratic president. So even if Trump gets everything he wants, okay, we're cutting this up, we're getting that, we're doing this, the next Democratic president will come in and go, oh yeah, I'm changing it all back. That's not the way to run a state. And they took the cheap political route. Shame on you, Orrin Hatch. and Rob Bishop and Mia Love and the rest of you. You guys did nothing good for the state as you were racking up political points.
Go ahead, Judy.
Oh, I just was going to say that to me, it's really just a point in a continuing dialogue. I think Steve kind of mentioned this a little earlier, that it's challenged. There are already at least 3 lawsuits. I think there's more already. There's congressional legislation, but the problem is that Congress can't do very much. It's not very effective. And I think that in a way, one of the real triumphs of this action and the president coming here is the fact that Orrin Hatch and the Utah delegation helped him get the tax reform through. It's the first and potentially the only major legislation the Trump administration's actually been able to forward in its 1 year. And the Utah delegation helped that happen, and Senator Hatch in particular. And so I really see this as maybe there's a chance going forward that Congress can actually make some of these changes, but there's not a really big appetite nationally to reduce monuments and to change the way things have been going already.
The American West has always been about excess, whether it's cutting trees, whether it's killing bison, whether it's declaring huge monuments or shrinking them down to nothing. This is not a recent thing that we haven't had balance over the American West. I'm hopeful that at this particular point we might. I agree. It's tough to escape partisan politics. If we can lock up something that is a victory for the entire state. Now is the starting point, because we really might lose the lawsuit. Utah might, and there will be another Democratic administration in the White House that could just redesignate it. Let's stop playing political football with our lands. Let's have true protections and also have access where Utahns can enjoy these lands.
That's interesting. Let's address one thing that all of you brought up a little bit, and that is the Orrin Hatch factor in all of this. He did invite the president, and President Trump gave him full credit for coming. Does this help Senator Hatch if he's thinking about running again? I guess the question is this a capstone piece of activity for him, or is this a platform? What are you saying from this one, Senator DeBackus?
I'm the last guy. I mean, I have no insider, but of course I have opinions. My sense was Hatch was not going to run, but in the last few days I got a recording from him saying, you know, listen to my whatever I'm going to do. I don't think you don't do that unless you're going to run. I definitely think he's going to run, but I saw him go down the steps of Air Force One, and it was not a good thing. We need somebody who's vigorous. We need somebody who can be there, who's physically there. And to pretend that this isn't an issue is to look around something. And so the big question boils down to this. I think Mitt Romney didn't want to get his gloves dirty and wanted to be handed the Senate seat. I don't think that's going to happen now. So it all falls down on Mitt Romney. Does he hate Ray Moore and Donald Trump and what's going on enough in Washington to get soiled and take on Orrin Hatch? That's the question, and I don't know the answer.
Do you know the answer, Senator
I
Urquhart?
don't know the answer, but Orrin Hatch is a living legend. Anyone in Utah, when we want to get something done, you go to Chris Stewart in the House, you go to Orrin Hatch in the Senate. I mean, this is our Stockton to Malone connection. And so Orrin Hatch, you know, he really can deliver. He knows the process. We're not going to have an Orrin Hatch in the next 4 years, the next 6 years. If people say he's old, I mean, he takes all of these supplements, the palmetto, the echinacea, the noni juice. You have dog years and you have Hatch years. For all we know, he could effectively be 47 years old for the next 150 years. I'll vote for him, and I'll cut my grandkids and great-grandkids out of the will if they don't vote for him, as long as he continues to deliver.
Well, and I think it was really smart for Senator Hatch and the Utah delegation to line up with Trump on this, because it looks like in other races around the country that being oriented with President Trump means that you're more likely to win your election. People like Donald Trump, and even, again, the people in San Juan County who I think were a little iffy about him at first, they were like, that was a good speech, and boy, it hit all the right points for people who believe those things.
Can you just, for 1 second, since you were reporting from San Juan, how did the community really feel about this? We heard from some of them when President Trump made his speech. But are they all there? Are they all united in this? Who are the winners and losers of this that you heard from?
You know, I think a lot of people who are part of the sort of political establishment there and their supporters, that they really agree that this is the best thing for the area. They believe that their freedom was taken away when the monument was established. But there were a lot of people I talked to as well who sort of signaled that the economy is changing there, and they didn't want to talk with me on the record because they felt like they would be intimidated, or there would be reprisals for them showing support for the monument. So I think as things change over time, the gates are already open, the horse is out of the barn, and I guess I mixed my metaphor there, but yeah, I mean, the changes are already happening, and now I think going forward, the legislation and what happens in the courts, it'll be really telling.
Okay, let's transition a bit to an item you brought up, Senator Backus, on Roy Moore. Whether or not he wins his election, the people of the state of Alabama send him back or not, Trump has come out in support of him. Orrin Hatch, maybe a little, but not so much after this was the case. And we have Mitt Romney going after him directly. And I want to explore that just a little bit by setting up with this graphic, a tweet that came from Mitt Romney. He said, Roy Moore in the U.S. Senate would be a stain on the GOP and on the nation. Lee Corfman and other victims are courageous heroes. No vote, no majority is worth losing our honor, our integrity. So that's a pretty big statement from Mitt Romney right there. How does this set him up there when Orrin Hatch has not gone as far, maybe because he was trying to get some things done, as you talked about, and you have Mitt Romney? How does that change the dynamic going forward for that race?
It's a grand slam for Mitt Romney. You do not want to be in Utah. I can't imagine anywhere, but in Utah, you sure do not want to be aligned with Roy Moore. You do not want to be aligned with Bannon. Romney effectively drew a significant distinction between him and that icky branch of the party.
Why did Bannon do, maybe describe, Senator Backus, what Bannon did immediately after that and the why?
Bannon was down in Alabama, and he was campaigning for the alleged pedophile. And he, in a way of talking, he was talking about how bad things are in Washington. He spoke about McConnell, and he basically said Mitt Romney was a chicken and he should have been serving in Vietnam, and instead he went to France and did missionary work. So this is so funny to hear Governor Herbert apoplectic. Yeah. I mean, he was more on Twitter and more direct than I've ever seen him at his time in attacking that. And I just want to say, come on, Governor Herbert. And Mitt and Mike Lee and the rest of you guys, you just can't believe what you've heard from Trump Bannon. You know what? You lie down with dogs. Don't complain about the fleas. These guys want it both ways. They want to be there for Trump, and they want to have pomp and circumstance and get their picture taken. But there's an ugly, miserable, horrendous side of that man and his administration. And the embrace of Roy Moore is emblematic of that. And so somehow they're trying to create this dichotomy because, let's face it, Donald Trump is 85% popular with Utah Republicans, so they dare not speak out. Mitt Romney, on the other hand, has said, you know what, full speed ahead, I'm going to say that. And I give him credit for some political courage that isn't there. Where are you, Mia Love? Where are you in standing out and standing up? They won't do it. They can't do it because they're worried about delegates. They're worried about the core of the Republican Party. That's courageless.
Yeah, I'm just really interested in, from a Republican's perspective, how does the party deal with this? I mean, the Democrats are sort of drawing a bright line and saying, if you're accused, you're out. And the Republicans, I mean,
well, we haven't had a Republican resign yet, right?
Donald Trump is accused of a lot of the same kinds of things. And so how do you reconcile that in your soul and for the values that you have and advancing the values and ideas that you have?
Well, the way I handled it is I didn't vote for Trump. I won't vote for Trump. Roy Moore also, I think, how does the party deal with it? Ineptly. Because the party absolutely should divorce itself from Moore, should push him under the bus where he belongs.
And, you know, Jacqueline Orton, the widow of Representative Bill Orton, she actually grew up with Lee Corfman. in Alabama, and actually came out and stood behind her and said, you know, yeah, I believe her. She's telling the truth here.
Well, is there a divide here or a double standard? Because you have had several Democrats step down over the last couple days. We haven't seen a Republican do it yet. What's going on there, Senator Backus? Are we waiting? Is it all about the votes?
I don't know if there's any nobility there, or it's just a cold calculation of this will help us get more Republicans. I don't know that it's a great morality difference between the parties, but I know this, that Republican or Democrat, to say that there's more important things than what Roy Moore is alleged to believe. If you believe those women, no matter what you think you're going to gain out of it, whether it's national monuments or somebody on the Supreme Court or whatever, you are being derelict in your responsibility, because some things are more important than a political vote. And the internal morality of politicians, what they really believe, is much more important than how they stand on any issue. And I will vote for a strong, miserable Steve Urquhart conservative ahead of some liberal who has no core. That's the basis of what we all need to, as Americans, be voting on.
Thank you. No, I agree. We're in a partisan wilderness if the GOP cannot toss Moore aside. It's ridiculous to stand with someone like him.
Is it necessary for Roy Moore to go down for them to say that sexual harassment, these kinds of things, are bigger than any political party? You say it has to happen.
I think so, and they didn't say it.
Well, and it's an abuse of power, and I think that's sort of the common theme here with the monuments and the sexual harassment issue. It's people feeling like their voices matter, that they matter as human beings. And when Donald Trump said, you know, I'm going to reduce the monuments, people said, he heard me. He knows how I feel. And I think that that's the issue with women. I wonder how that's going to play out in future elections. You know?
Very interesting. We have had some efforts from our own congressional delegation on efforts on sexual harassment. Congressman Chris Stewart immediately jumped into that one, really making it possible for people to not have secret payouts going forward, which goes to kind of the power of our delegation anyway. How do you think our delegation is in Washington, D.C.? Are we powerful? Are we moving it? Maybe you don't love where you're going, but how powerful is our delegation?
Well, you know, I said the Stockton to Malone connection is Chris Stewart and Orrin Hatch. I mean, Orrin Hatch, yes, he is older, but no one can be more powerful up there than Orrin Hatch. And the thing is, he does not forget he's from Utah. He has great constituent services. That's what I loved being in the legislature. I know Senator DeBax loves it. Someone comes to you, they have an issue with government. We only have 6 people in D.C. who really can yank in an agency head and say, here's how it's going to be. Hatch does that, Chris Stewart does it. I think those two are very powerful. I think that Congressman Bishop, he does great on public lands issues. Now is really his opportunity to step up and do something meaningful on this. I think we have some members who deliver.
Senator Backus?
Let's go through this. We had no power when Obama was in office. None. There was no communication. None. It was horrendous. I mean, they're asking me to go and talk about public land issues. You know, they had to go way down because our Congress people refused to talk to the Obama administration. That's exactly what happened. You go through person by person. There has never been a Utah senator or House member in leadership. They're not there. They get powerful committee roles, but only because they've been there so long. They're not all that well respected. And you go down person by person. Rob Bishop was chairman of the most important committee in the Congress on public land. He couldn't get his own PLI done. These people, while they have power, they're not What has Mia Love done? Can you give me any important initiative she's carried? These are too many ideologues who have been told by all the political consultants, go down in the cave, don't have a real public hearing where you can talk to real citizens, you know, go through these phone things so you're not there. All they hear is the echo chamber. I give them a D. I give them a D. I don't think they're responsive to anybody but this little core group of ideologues.
Okay, go ahead, Judy.
Oh, I just think the Utah delegation has done a remarkable job, again, with the monuments. I'm not saying that I like it or don't like it,
right.
but I think Utah politics helped organize the Trump administration in a way that it has not been able to be organized in his whole administration. His speech was solid, his appearance was solid, there were no missteps. Again, the content of it, it was what the Utah delegation wanted, but the Utah delegation got him to get it together, which is amazing to me.
Okay, Senator, a couple big things from that delegation with tax reform, which was really Senator Orrin Hatch kind of leading the charge on that one. And then if it's true that he's the one that impacted this decision here, what happens to this kind of power in Washington, D.C. if he doesn't run?
It would be it'd be a big hole. I mean, he leaves huge shoes to fill, and the reality is, you can't fill them in 4 years. Can you fill them in 20 years?
Turns out it takes 40.
Yeah, I mean, it is the system. It'd be nice if it were different. It is what it is, and he's very valuable to us being there. You know that. Everyone who goes to D.C., you know that. You go by his office because he delivers for the state.
Okay, last comment, Judy.
Oh, I just wonder if this is the time for a big Elect Millennials campaign to come in, to just really shake things up in Congress to make those changes.
All right, very good. Great comments. Thank you for your insight today. That's it for tonight's show. The conversation continues online at kued.org/Hinckley Report. We'll see you next week. Thank you and good night.